When it comes to this house, no good deed goes unpunished. Here's your look at the brand new Hiya Toys, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre Exquisite Mini Leatherface Slaughter version. After nearly 50 years of hiding, Leatherface returns to terrorize a group of idealistic young friends who accidentally disrupt his carefully shielded world in a remote Texas town. He waves his chainsaw in the air, but this time in victory. Now Leatherface comes to the Exquisite Mini line as a 1/18 scale slaughter version action figure. This preview's exclusive figure stands 4.33 inches tall and has 15 points of articulation, and is based on Leatherface's appearance in Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 2022. Well, it would seem that Leatherface has finally found a way to get ahead in real estate. Before we get a closer look, stick it together, keep it together. Before we get a closer look at the slaughter version of Leatherface from the brand new Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I'd like to first thank the folks over at Hiya Toys that did provide this sample. We are also going to be bringing in the regular version of Leatherface for comparisons in a second. I think most of the comparisons are actually just more cosmetic than anything else. Just a little bit of blood will do. In the meantime, though, measuring this figure off, he's going to stand exactly the same as the one we looked at before, which means that this Leatherface is about 4¼ inches in height, or the figure's going to be about 11 centimeters tall. As promsies, though, let's slide over the slaughter version of Leatherface and bring in the cleaner, and I'm using that term very loosely. The cleaner version of Leatherface, you can see, it does look again like they're probably using the exact same figure. I can't imagine that they would have retooled anything different. I thought for a second, and we will bring in, I'll get closer into the heads, you can see the difference between the two. I think they're using the exact same heads, and again, it's just the fact that one has a lot more blood. One just doesn't have as much of blood. He still has it, but he doesn't have it to the degree of the slaughter version. Speaking of heads, we will be looking at one of the extra accessories that come along with this exclusive version of Leatherface, but leave that with me. Give me a couple of seconds at least. First, the figure comes included with the same floorboard as the earlier looked at cleaner version Leatherface. To the fact that it actually looks like it's exactly the same, which is fine. I can't imagine them to re-sculpt brand new flooring if it's going to look as, well, it looks good anyways. I think the coloring is a little more reddish on this one. They also may have saw an opportunity as well to splatter some blood all over this. Considering he's got blood on him already, why not share some of that wealth around, splatter a little bit of that on the floor? But other than that, it looks like to be exactly the same. This one actually doesn't seem as shiny as this one, but again, mileage may vary. To connect these two, by the way, as there's slots on the bottoms of these, you get yourself these capital I brackets, and simply just take them and clip them in between. You really don't a lot of times even need two of them, even though there really is spots to hold two on all the sides. I find sometimes just really you honestly using one eye bracket is more than enough. Just clip the one and attach it, of course, to his neighboring tile, neighboring display stand. Just clip the two together, and you got yourself a connecting board. You can simply rinse and repeat this. If you also wanted to, for some reason, wanted to display Leatherface, for example, with a xenomorph, a predator, justice figure, even like RoboCop. I mean, I'm throwing out weird things as comparisons, but just the fact that Hiya Toys is also using the same sized display stand with all the cases, you can also use these and mix them, match them. I might actually consider using some of the mud terrain that came included with like the Predators, for example, and maybe display one of my Leatherfaces on that instead of actually just the floorboarding, just to make them a little more different. But again, like you just connect the two together. Move that to the side. The figure, like I said, does come included with the head sculpt. I'm glad to see that they included this, so it's not just a case of cosmetics. In this case, you actually get the head sculpt of Melody. Boy, I was so glad that she got it. Spoiler, of course, for anybody that hasn't had the chance to check out the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. He does come included with a head that he can carry around. The hand is already permanently attached to the back of her head, so you're literally just carrying her around. In order to do that, all you're going to do is first take your figure, find out which side, of course, this is going to be on. Thumbsy's matching up on this side. You're going to go and remove the hand from the peg. When doing this, just do it with caution. Just remove it carefully from the peg, because the pegs that they use on these figures are always super small. Then line up the peg, plug it back into place. And again, if you're having a tough time, just wiggle it back and forth. Maybe don't put the pressure directly on the peg, but wiggling it back and forth will certainly assist. And then you can actually got the figure displayed then with Melody's head in his hand. Gruesome, but well received. I appreciate the fact that Hiya Toys would have included something like that. And of course, from there, you can also have him displayed with his chainsaw. He comes included with that as well. Putting him down here for a second while holding still the head of Melody. The figure also comes included with a chainsaw, though in this case, it's actually a lot more used. Of course it is, by this point in the movie. It's a lot more generously splattered with blood. You can actually see by the stream, the little line that he left behind down at the bottom there, that he clearly has been cutting. This one looks like it's just a little bit of dripping blood. This one is full out saturation. The actual chainsaws, to compare the two, they don't look that much different from one another. I mean, this one's a little bit grimier than this one down below here. You also see as well the clean sandwich in the middle. I did talk about that on this one, had more dirtier sides, but the one in the middle, like the section in the middle, was a lot cleaner and green. This, there's no disputing the fact that that's a very dirty used chainsaw, but they are exactly the same to one another, as they certainly should be. To change out the hands, oh, first of all, I keep putting Leatherface back standing here. I just also want to show you guys, he does also come include the same gripping hands. Literally the same. I'm going to carefully hold this. I wanted to bring in the one that came included with the cleaner version as a point to prove. It does look like he's got a little bit of blood on the dirtier version, the slaughter version, but I don't think it's as dirty as it really should be. The reasoning why I say that, let's go ahead and remove the hand on this side. Careful, careful. There we go. And then just to replace it with the hand, the gripping hand, the reasoning why I say that I don't think they added nearly enough blood, if you look at it, unfortunately, there's a real cut divide of where it should be bloody and continue to be bloody, and yet he has a really clean-looking hand. Again, just to show you the difference between this one and the cleaner version, if you were to say, hey, you grabbed the wrong one, no, it's this hand. I don't know why, again, like this one, I think they really should have made it a lot dirtier than what it actually is. Either way, though, the figure also comes included with, like I said, two versions of that. This hand is a little dirtier. This will then go on this side. But I feel like, again, they probably should have added a lot more blood on his hand than what there actually is. To take the chainsaw, making sure, of course, I'm grabbing the right one here. Whoops. I'm dropping the chainsaw in the process. We're going to just bend the elbow in this case. You can just bring the hand away from the palm just a little bit. And then you can take yourself the chainsaw. Not the easiest, mind you, to do when you got a hand this small. And I'm not even just talking about my own hands. If it helps at all, you can also take the hand and attach it onto the chainsaw handle first. A problem I have with this specific hand, which I didn't seem to have before, is that the thumb always gets in the way. And because of the softer plastic that they ended up using, oops, not just breaking. Okay, good. It was only clipped in place. I was going to say, like, just clipping that into his hand doesn't seem to be the easiest thing to do. And we just plug that back onto the peg. And now you've got Leatherface with chainsaw in one hand and Melody's head in the other. I think when I'm going to come to displaying this guy, I'm probably going to have the hand up maybe like this, for example, and have him just presently displayed with his trophy in hand. I think that's going to look rather nice. For right now, at least, simply just because we are going to be looking at the figure, I'm going to just essentially remove all the things that just finished attaching onto the figure's hands. The peg, by the way, if you thought the handle was broken, it clips in place. I simply just removed it. Probably take a little bit of glue anyways and glue it in anyways, but still, at least it's not a broken handle. It just came loose from the peg. Whew. Let's go ahead and attach the hand back in place. I'm going to just go back to the relaxed hand because I think it's definitely got a lot more blood working in its favor than the gripping hand. As for Leatherface himself, getting now a closer look at the head sculpt, and for this, it would certainly help to then bring in the cleaner version so you guys can see the difference between the two. Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily a case where anything has been retooled. I can't imagine that Hiya Toys would have stopped, thought, hey, you know what, we need to retool a brand new head. But why? It's only a blood version of the same character. No, we got to change it. No, I think in this case, they would have just kept the head sculpt the exact same. This one seems to have a little more of a 5 head, possibly even borderlining a 6 than this one right here. But I think it's just also the way I've got the head angled down. If I bring it up, it definitely seems to be the case. They're using the exact same head. There's a lot more blood, obviously, going on with this guy than there is this one here. And where maybe the blood would have stopped with the mask on this version, the cleaner version, it certainly continues on its merry little way for the rest of the figure's body. He's got blood all over his arms. He's got blood all over his apron. This apron has been generously donated, a whole bunch of blood. He has it all along, like it's literally just like splattered across it. The apron is attached the exact same way. So if you did see my review of the cleaner version of Leatherface, let's just move his arms out of the way here for a second. The apron isn't so much attached all the way around. They sort of, again, cheats when it comes to this point, in order for the figure to have some decent articulation, which he actually does have on the top of his torso and the lower torso, but just before we actually get to the waist, in order to accommodate that, they decided not to attach the apron to his body. Because if they did, then it would at least give you where the strings, of course, are attached. I don't even know if I actually showed you this on the other Leatherface, but they actually did sculpt a tied-up knot. I think that's really neat, the fact that they've done it. I'd be worried, of course, for this to come off and ripped off, but the fact that they would have actually done that is a nice touch. The thing about it, though, is, again, like the apron is going to sit a little wider on the figure's body just because, again, it doesn't really attach necessarily. I suppose you probably could add a little bit of glue, but, like, then you would limit all the articulation that they took the time to put there in the first place. The tie looks to be the exact same as before, although one thing they've done differently, you can see like they've sort of given it kind of like a throwback to the original 70s tie, whereas this one would have had just a black tie. So I'm glad to see that they threw a little nod in there. The shirt is also clearly a lot dirtier. It's a more of a reddish brown than the more, I guess, like a beige brown that we did get with the original release. But there's definitely still a lot of opportunity where they went in with their paint teams and carefully painted some dark airbrushing in the suit as well. Some of it could be shadowing. A lot of it, I'm guessing, is probably still blood, but I'm glad to see that they actually darkened that up a little bit. So even like just to look at the back of the figure's bodies, one is very much different than the one that we looked at before. The pants seem to be the same. Let's just twist his leg around because it looked a little awkward here. The pants seem to be the exact same between the two figures. It still is the case where not only does he not have any row behind to him, but it also seems like they've also used a softer plastic. What I was found funny, though, about the Slaughter version is that he doesn't seem to have as much looseness in his pants. Feel free to put in whatever you want. He doesn't seem to have as much of a softer plastic that I've noticed here. I would imagine it'd be the exact same, but it's probably just a case where maybe I had even had the leg a little bit lower down. With these legs, by the way, you can drop them down a little bit lower, and that adds a little bit more softness to his derriere. Plug those back into place. The boots are exactly the same also as well. I did notice with this one too, not only are the boots shinier, but he seems to have better ankle articulation. I don't think, again, they've changed anything between the two. I think it's just a case where this one was a lot tighter on my original one. For the figure's articulation, it's going to be exactly the same as the one that we looked at before. The figure does have not only a ball joint in the head, it looks up to about here, it looks down, and you can also rock it back and forth as well. Figure's arms rotate all the way around. You can split them out well, you can bring them out at 90 degrees. The figure does have a bicep swivel, or I should say, like, he has a swivel here in the shoulder. He doesn't have really a swivel here. Don't start twisting this, whatever you do, and don't blame me if you did. Figure has double hinge on the elbow, though. Hands rotate all the way around. It's the only real eyesore on the entire figure is just the fact that his hand is clearly not the same color as the rest of his forearm. Either way, though, the figure has an upper torso ball joint. I mean, you can rotate it back and forth this way. You can rotate it this way as well. And the figure also has a secondary ball joint that attaches the part of his abdomen to the lower half of his softer body. Again, it's only soft here in the softer plastic that they used for his behind. All the plastic below that is still a harder plastic. The legs split out. Just to show you, he does do a full split. You can also drop the legs down too as well, and that might add to some of the softness that I was experiencing before. Simply just take those legs and you pop them back into place. The figure's legs swivel at the top of the thigh. The figure does have a double hinge on the knee, and he has what I still feel to be better articulation, I don't know why, on the ankle than on the original release that we got before. Pick your poison is certainly a case where you can either get one or the other. I mean, I guess if you're one for gore, you may prefer to get the Slaughter version, say, over the regular version. But I think for in case like this, it's not just cosmetic changes that are making this guy still worth picking up, even if you got the chance to get the original cleaner version. The real asset, I feel, is the fact he also comes included with Melody's head sculpt. And maybe we didn't spend nearly enough time to talk about how cool it is that he comes with a severed head, just to show you what it looks like underneath. Kind of looks like a pig nose. Still love the fact that they would have taken the time to include this, and when it comes to certainly displaying this version of Leatherface, while this one will be only solely towing a chainsaw in hand, this guy will be doing double duties by carrying not only the chainsaw, but also the severed head of Melody in his other hand. Now, I would feel, even if this was just a case where they've added additional blood to Leatherface, I already liked the initial figure that we looked at earlier here on the channel so much that I would still be venturing off to get the bloodied version if it was simply just a case that they darkened up the clothing and they added a whole lot more blood on not only his mask, but also his apron. But Hiya said, no, we're not just going to do that. We're going to throw in there something as well. Make it worth your purchase that they also took the time to include Melody's head sculpt. Clearly is going to be the way I'm going to be displaying the figure on the shelf. Now, again, going back to a point I mentioned earlier, with the Predator figures, they tend to come with like muddier terrain when it comes to their display stands. What I might just end up doing, because Leatherface isn't really holding the head sculpt, in a room like this, where, of course, you've got the hardwood flooring, I might actually display this guy instead with the muddier terrain from a Predator. And it's simply just a case where they're using the exact same size display stands, they're using the exact same size diameter pegs, and for that matter, they're also using the same eye brackets to connect all those stands together. So you don't have to commit to the idea of displaying him with the stand that he comes included with. Hey, why not? Use one that came included with another figure instead, and it might just end up doing that. Nice overall looking Leatherface. The only thing that's disrupting about the figure is not the fact he does have a head. That's not the disturbing part. It's more so the fact that the figure has a cleaner hand. I had to even go back and look at the extra hands because, of course, I've looked at the cleaner version and now I've looked at the slaughter version. I thought for a second, well, maybe I put the wrong hand on his forearm. No, I didn't. This hand has a little more blood than the cleaner version, but not to the degree where I think it looks accurate to the rest of his forearm. I can't imagine he's just stopping for a second and washing his hands in a sink. Leatherface doesn't even wash. I think what he's rather doing instead is he's going around slaughtering teenagers and people foolish enough to wander into his stray town. I would have probably even gone in there. I might even just do it myself. Just add a little bit of blood. I'd want to make sure, of course, it's matching in color because, again, it just looks like he stopped to wash his hands, and Leatherface ain't about washing himself at all. What do you guys think of the figure? Let me know down below in the comments section. Could you also see yourselves, not to say this so loudly, could you also see yourselves getting the cleaner version and the slaughter version? Do you think there's enough merit to the slaughter version to be a worthy pickup if you already have the original? Let me know down below in the comments section. Also, as well, I'd like to thank the folks, of course, over at Hiya Toys that did provide this sample of the slaughter version Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022 Leatherface that we got the chance to have a look in this review. If you guys enjoyed this video, I want to throw it with a like. If you guys are loving the content you guys are seeing and you'd like to certainly stick around for more Hiya Toys reviews, just an FYI, I'm going to tap on your shoulder. No, it's not a ghost. You thought for a second that a ghost was tapping on the shoulder. Ghosts don't do that. They just like to haunt and throw things around like chairs and move salt shakers. But a little person's going to be tapping you on the shoulder just to let you know as well that there are going to be more Hiya Toys reviews coming your way. So as always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.